What is up, y'all? I want to share with you guys today one of the classic statements I hear, usually from a little bit more novice businesses, like ones that aren't generating a ton of revenue. And it's a big lie that we tell ourselves, where it's like, if I only had better systems, everything in my business would run smoother. When I do a little investigating on this, I do a little digging, what I typically find is that like systems, backend systems, automations, emails, things like that are not the problem. They're not the problem for those people. Typically, it is a sales problem. It is a front end offer problem. It is a going out marketing and putting yourself out there problem. And systems do not matter until that part of the business is fixed. So I want to share with you like some of the things that I generally see in some of the businesses that we work with, or some of the conversations that I have with people, where they have these really complicated, over-engineered back-end systems before figuring out the front end, right? And so, their theoretical client journey is set up, their automation when people buy, and this automation triggers this email sequence, I have this opt-in, but they have zero revenue. The thing that I kind of find is working on the back end of the business feels really safe, right? It feels like this is a lot of work and a lot of investment in the business. And so it makes you feel like you're doing a ton of work. It makes you feel like you're building something really valuable. But then you look at the bank account, you look at the Stripe receipts, and it's all zeros, right? Because the business isn't built on systems, it's supported by systems. So what I'd rather see like manual stuff that we're figuring out and we're understanding the journey, and then we can actually engineer the system, right? Now, this generally ties in, especially with lower volume service providers. So online coaches can fall into that category. Physical therapists, chiropractors, rehab professionals, personal trainers, where we're selling a service. And that's because systems are built for scale, but scale doesn't really exist yet. So it's almost that kind of cart before the horse. So a lot of times, like, you don't even know what are the steps that a client is actually going to take in, the real consumer behavior. So like I said, we're kind of putting that cart before the horse, where it's like, well, when they do this, I'm going to send them this automation. Well, why are you sending them that automation? Have you had a conversation with a person where you think that that's the automation that you need to send? I'll give you an example of this. When I started this company, I was like, I'm going to do a one-call close process, right? And the problem that I found was people are like, yeah, like what you're offering is great, but I just like don't know you well enough yet. So let me go do some research and think about it. And so from there, the system, the automation that I created was, when somebody booked a discovery call, we moved to a 2-call close. Now we don't really do that. We just do an intro call and we send you all the information if you want to work together. But we did a 2-call close, right? So somebody booked a discovery call. Hey, before you show up to the call, please watch this training. So that way I didn't have conversations about what we did. Between the discovery call, hey, I'm going to send you a couple client interviews, send them automated 2 client interviews. That way they show up to that second call way warmer than when I was doing a 1-call close. But all of that I did manually for months while I was figuring out the formula of consumer behavior, right? The other big thing that we see with systems, and this kind of ties back into point number 1 of staying safe, it becomes really easy to blame the system for why things aren't working, right? But the reality is, like, you don't really have the data points to know that, because you probably aren't putting enough people through the system. You don't have enough meaningful reps to systemize the software, to systemize the journey in the first place. And so you've kind of just taken what you think is going to happen and you've said like, well, this is the client journey, but again, we need to prioritize sales. So those are generally the 3 big things that I see there. So what we recommend is, number 1, like, sell first, You need to have revenue coming in before you really invest in like these back-end systems, right? Like we make sure that our clients, we have a back-end systems offer. We make sure that our clients have at least $3,000 to $5,000 in recurring revenue. So it's not like you need to be at this crazy revenue amount, but you need to have some proof of concept. And you really need to understand your client journey. You need to understand, a client is gonna book a discovery call, and then what's the next step, coming for an eval, and then what's the nurture sequence between the eval that you wanna send? Do you want it to be sniper rifle or shotgun? Do you want it to be very specific, or do you want it to be kind of general to your process? All of these things are really important. From there, you can then figure out what you want to automate and what you want to keep a higher manual touch point. So the goal in backend systems is not automating everything. I think that's actually a really big mistake. I think when you take the scale too far on automation, you lose a lot of personal touch. And so you want to find that balance of like, what are the things that I need to automate, but what are the things that I want to make sure it's actually me involved? You need to understand like, how do you want to deliver? When do you want to add check-ins? When do you want to add touch points? You have to get a good understanding of what your journey, your onboarding journey is going to be like in the first place, right? So when should you really start considering systems? Like I said, for us, we have something called Autopilot where we partner with a back-end systems group. They're amazing. And I've found that you kind of have to have this sweet spot where like you maybe don't feel like you're ready to implement it, but like you are about to have this kind of growth potential. Like the last thing that you want to do, you don't want to implement systems too early, and you don't want to implement systems too late. You want to implement systems in that sweet spot. And I have just kind of seen 3 to 5K consistently per month be a really good number where it makes sense. Where once we're in that 5K range, we're going to start to get into 7K, 8K. Now we're a 6-figure business. Now we're going into a 5-figure month, 10K, and that allows that business to scale without taking a lot of the provider's time. The other thing is you've done the manual work, so you understand how your consumer behaves as they move through your ecosystem, and you understand the intent of every automation, of every structure that you've built within your system. I think that's super important. And then lastly, like what you want your system to do. Do you want your system to nurture? Do you want your system to be something where they're gonna watch, client interviews? I think that is so important. I think if you were gonna automate just 2 things right off the bat or play around with 2 manual processes, it'd be 1, sending clients a video before you met with them that talks about who you are, what you do, why you're different from, the normal industry. And then it would be after you talk to them, send them some client result videos. Like if you were gonna automate 2 things that I think would give you the biggest bang for buck, those would be the 2 things that I would start with, and you'll start to understand why those pieces of content are so important. So again, just to kind of recap, right? Like don't let all the marketing and messaging scare you that like you don't have systems and that's why your business is stuck. Like if you don't have sales, that is why your business is stuck. You have to get out there. You have to do the uncomfortable work, networking, meeting people before you worry about systems. Please, please, please do not put the cart before the horse. Get that proof of concept, understand the client journey. And then when you have that $3,000 to $5,000 in consistent revenue in the business, that's really a good time to start looking at some systems. Hopefully this was helpful for y'all. If you have questions, you can always DM me at Ray Gorman DPT over on Instagram. And today's Friday when I'm recording this, so hopefully y'all have a great Friday. All right, take care.